Modern gaming. Just the word modern has become synonymous across all of media with being a cancer the way it spreads and kills anything with a core audience. But nowhere is there a bigger tumorous growth than with the gaming industry. If you're like me and grew up during the absolute peak of human civilization, then you remember a time when video games were actually video games. No day one patches, no missing features, no roadmaps. We had feature-complete games on day one. Titles like Gears of War and Halo 3, you put that disc in and everything was there. An amazing campaign, some addictive multiplayer, and my favorite, split-screen co-op. My disdain for modern gaming is more than just old games good and new games bad, which seems to be what quite a few people hear whenever I share my opinions on this platform. They usually tell me things like, not all newer games are bad. Those older consoles had bad games too, you know. And just face it, man, you're not a kid anymore and you just don't enjoy games as much as you used to. It's not where you are now, man. It's where you were as a kid. And after reading dozens of comments like this each day, it's just so cringe, but it really made me think. Maybe I'm just not providing the right context. So, first off, you're right about a lot of older games being pretty awful. Only difference is, those games didn't cost hundreds of millions to develop. You just forgot about the bad ones and just played the good ones instead. That isn't today. So when I say I don't enjoy modern gaming, what I mean is, I don't enjoy feeling like I'm running on a treadmill, constantly cycling through junk that's slightly better than the junk I'm currently holding. I don't like playing the same game every single day out of fear that if I don't, I'll be missing out. That's not including the fact that these publishers have their hands firmly wrapped around the throats of our once beloved franchises. I'd much rather play a game that releases with all the content it's ever gonna get and at most gets an expansion DLC. Anything more than that is where I kinda have to draw the line, and I'm sure most people would agree with me. You know, we used to have a name for these types of games back in the day. I think they were called MMOs. Listen, I don't have a problem with MMOs. I enjoyed Final Fantasy XIV, nearly 300 hours worth. It becomes a problem when these publishers think to themselves, okay, how do we make money like an MMO without actually having to do all the work of making one? That's why we're all left standing here wondering where all the great single-player franchises went and why they've all been replaced with these live service games that blur the line between video game and 9-to-5 job. Because if you can create an addictive gameplay loop and keep players engaged long enough, you can get them to spend a lot of money over time without the need for a monthly subscription fee. And listen, I'm not saying that live service is inherently bad. Helldivers 2 is proof that you can make a phenomenal live service game. I just hate how someone like me, a fan of the Batman Arkham games, some of the best superhero games ever made in my opinion, has nothing to look forward to. That amazing free-flow combat system that created an entire subgenre of video games, that feeling of actually being the Batman, and that amazing single-player experience that you can pick up and play, and then when you're done with it, you can put it back down. All replaced by games like Gotham Knights, which I don't care what anybody says, it's a live service game, it's just pretending to be a single-player game. And Suicide Squad? I can ignore Gotham Knights, but when you have a studio like Rocksteady push out garbage like this, it breaks my goddamn heart. Rocksteady was a name you could trust. It was up there with the likes of Capcom and From Software for me. There used to be a time where you would hear names like Rocksteady or BioWare and you wouldn't even ask questions, you would just open up your wallet. From Software, I never watched a review for Shadows Die Twice. I just bought the game because I knew who was making it. The same thing with Elden Ring. From Software built an audience with Dark Souls, gave that audience more of what it wanted, and since then has been repeating the same pattern and being handsomely rewarded for it. And you know what? Hogwarts Legacy? I was part of that audience because I absolutely loved that game. But hearing how they want to double down on games as a service even after the failure of Suicide Squad, I really just have no interest in what's next. Just look at your library. If you play video games at all, you most likely have a backlog of unfinished games. For some of us, clearing out this massive back catalog of games has become an unrealistic goal. That's why it's important for video games to have a start line and a finish line. It's gonna come to a point where rolling the credits on a game and having that feeling, you know the one I'm talking about, where you wish you could erase your memory and experience it all over again, just won't be a thing anymore. When I think of updates for a game that I enjoy, I don't think of something that's constantly evolving. I think of a few patches and bug fixes, and the game is still the same now as it's gonna be in 10 years from now. Like I said, I enjoyed Final Fantasy XIV. I came in after A Realm Reborn and hearing stories of how this game was utter trash and then got rebooted from the ground up and became one of the biggest comebacks in gaming history was legendary. Games like No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk 2077 feel like triumphant underdogs because they didn't just let their games die. But more often than not, these live service models, they're only there to make a profit. Quality? It's usually the last thing these companies care about. We see time and time again companies losing player trust and suffering from it. Just look at Ubisoft with Star Wars Outlaws and Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's going to be really difficult for them to shove microtransactions and all that season pass pre-order bonus bullshit in people's faces when they no longer give a shit. Which I don't even understand how season passes work in games like Assassin's Creed. I mean, I don't in general because I don't subscribe to this shit, but I thought the whole point of a season pass was to create FOMO to get people to engage with a game even more. Man, I missed all those cosmetics. Guess I'll have to try again next season. With Ubisoft, the season pass just gives you a lazily crafted expansion that just bloats the game even more and makes you want to engage with it less. Honestly, I think if they don't make drastic changes to Assassin's Creed Shadows during this delay, I mean, they're already cooked, but Ubisoft just might cease to exist. And it really sucks because for a lot of us, we grew up with these franchises, and live service feels like it's killing them. I want more games like Dishonored and Prey, these amazing immersive sims that Arcane is known for, but it looks like that's no longer a thing anymore. Does anybody remember Titanfall? Titanfall 2 has one of the best campaigns I've ever played in a shooter. Well, now it's Apex Legends. I never got into the Dragon Age series, but Mass Effect made me a BioWare fan. I used to love playing Mass Effect on my Xbox 360 and getting immersed in its world. Everything just felt so believable. Who else used to just sit there listening to the codex narrator like it was an audiobook? Honestly, I don't want to see a Mass Effect 4. I feel like if Naughty Dog would have went the live service route and made The Last of Us Online, they would have joined the eventual graveyard of AAA studios killed by this profit-first culture. I really hope these publishers look at games like Concord and think to themselves, oh shit, looks like live service isn't the safer option anymore. My brain still cannot register $400 million. And the worst part is, these games will just eventually disappear. All that time you invested, once the game's done being updated and it's no longer being developed on, once servers get shut down, they'll be pulled from stores and even taken from your own library. One of the biggest reasons I welcome the digital age is because discs get scratched, and eventually hardware no longer functions. Through digital downloads and backwards compatibility, you can circumvent this and play 20-year-old games on new hardware. Why do you think I make videos like this? Videos like everything I miss about older games? Because the people who made these games, well, they were gamers too. They were usually small teams, and every member of that team had a clear vision for what the game was supposed to be. And indie games are now kinda carrying that torch. What a surprise that making games that follow the fun over profit are profitable. Makes you kinda wonder how profitable companies with big budgets could be if they followed this same philosophy.